of the Bengals' Vontaze Burfict, the original hit having earned Smith-Schuster a one-game suspension from which he had just returned. But it was not long after that game ended when the startling news broke of Richardson's intention to sell the Panthers just days after it was learned Richardson's conduct was the subject of a team investigation, which the NFL took over yesterday. The so-called Me Too movement, speaking out about workplace sexual harassment and sometimes worse, began 2 months ago. Allegations against movie studio chief Harvey Weinstein and the actor Kevin Spacey. It's permeated the halls of Congress. 5 members, including Senator Al Franken, have announced their intentions to resign because of allegations. Charges took down the biggest star at NBC, Matt Lauer of the Today Show, and led to 4 suspensions of the NFL Network, 3 of them involving former players, and leading ESPN to pull 2 NFL analysts who worked at the NFL Network, Donovan McNabb and Eric Davis, from their radio positions pending an investigation. The Boston Globe reported last week of a complaint filed with a Connecticut state agency against ESPN by former anchor Adrienne Lawrence, as well as her text interactions with anchor John Butchergrass. SI.com is reporting about Jerry Richardson that his conduct included allegedly sexually suggestive language and behavior, a racial slur directed against a team scout, and at least 4, quote, significant settlements to former Panthers employees. So I'm joined here by Chris Mortensen and Adam Schefter. So Me Too apparently hits the National Football League. Did it all truly occur this quickly? Investigation from the team announced late last week, and then the league takes it over, and then Richardson at 8 p.m. last night decides to sell or announces his intention. Well,
Bob, obviously the investigative enterprise piece by Sports Illustrated's writers is what prompted the announcement on Friday that the team was holding its own investigation into misconduct by Jerry Richardson.
Right.
And then within 48 hours, we have the NFL taking over that investigation, and then the announcement by Jerry Richardson after the game last night, the team will be sold after the season. So it happened all very swiftly, but obviously SI just didn't report.
Right, but it's when the Panthers learned about it. At what point SI goes to them?
Yeah, but at some point, that's when they brought them the information. Clearly, they announced we're having their own in-house investigation. So I will say this: there have been concerns among the minority ownership of the Panthers. I'm not talking about a minority in terms of African American or color of skin.
Less than a majority, controlling interest, right.
Who have had some concerns, according to the sources I've spoken with. I don't know what the specific concerns were, but I know this much. The team is now for sale once the season ends.
And again, it's supposed to take months. The price will be somewhere in the $2 billion range, well over the $200 or so million that Jerry Richardson paid for it. And I think part of the reason that he announced it last night was to not be a distraction for this team and this league, which he both feels very strongly about going forward. Because if and when he sells this team, it's hard to imagine that the NFL's investigation is going to be complete. So at a time where they've disciplined other coaches and teams and players and owners even, Jim Irsay, what can they do to Jerry Richardson once he sold his interest? They could fine him. So what?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, there's going to be an investigation.
Yeah, and there should be.
We'll see if the SI.com piece, and these are great reporters, whether it's borne out by the facts.
And one thing about the NFL, there are a number of people, prospective owners, that they have a pool, they have a list, and some of them have been vetted. So there are owners who are kind of in line to at least try to purchase a team. So it'll be interesting to see how fast this process goes.
So where's the critical mass between Roger Goodell and the other power brokers in the league and among the power-centric owners who will then nudge that franchise and the preferred ownership group together?
Well, listen, Jerry Richardson gets to pick who he sells the team to. And again, it was in his will that he was going to be selling that team. The estate was going to be selling the team. He now gets to control that. He picks the person. He picks the terms. He gets to divest it how he chooses, and that's one of the advantages to doing that right now.
But they also have to pass muster with the league office in terms of the vetting, the financials, and all those type of things.
Because there's always, I won't say wink and a nod, but it becomes apparent. I mean, Donald Trump tried to buy the Bills. He didn't have any blessing from the league at all in that regard.
No, and there's been some question as to whether he had the finances in terms of the requirements there for him to go forward with that.
You know who's expressed an interest to buy the team last night on Instagram? Let's roll it. The mogul of hip-hop and the entrepreneur. Here's Diddy.
Well, I need to send a message out to everybody in the beautiful state of North Carolina. I will be the best NFL owner that you can imagine. I will immediately address the Colin Kaepernick situation. and put him in the running for next year's starting quarterback. It's just competition, baby. It's just competition.
After that hits, Cap says, hey, I want in on the ownership group. Let's make it happen. Look, this, Cordy, if you can believe Wikipedia is about anybody's worth, Diddy's worth about, what, $900 million.
Right.
So that's a good start to put a group together. Is this going to become, put the Cap issue to the side, is he a player here?
Well, it's like put your money where your mouth is. Go in and get vetted by the league, see what your real money is, and then, oh, yeah, okay, fine. Cam Newton is your quarterback. He's been a league MVP, and you're going to let Colin Kaepernick compete with him. That's your prerogative. But if he can, listen, he can approach the league and say, hey, listen, I want to get in this ownership pool, and they can start that vetting process for him. If he's serious, there is a process.
The way it was explained to me last night was if you don't have personal wealth, it starts with a B, Bob. A B, don't bother.
None of us do, so I don't think we're in that pool.
Oh, Shefty is getting close.
Let's talk about the end of the Steelers-Pats, essentially the end of the game. And the whole question, what does it catch? And we're not going to rehash the rule and replay. And it's water cooler talk today, but you go high-tech there, and then you go low-tech with the folded index card that night. And yes, it's the kind of thing I think the league wants people talking about, but it's also what the devil is a catch. It's an animating topic today.
Well, here's the thing. I've had this conversation with members of the competition committee, and what it was explained to me is that, listen, if it isn't a catch at the 20-yard line or the 40-yard line or at the boundaries, it's not going to be a catch at the goal line until you've completed the catch. So, by the way, the ball can hit the ground, but you can't lose control.
Right.
It can't move there. And so, therefore, that's the simple explanation, and they've tweaked this thing several
too
different
bloody
times.
complicated?
It's hard to define exactly what is a catch.
No, actually, they believe now it's simple, so it was easy for them to overturn it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how they believe right now.
Bob, you have to survive the ground. If you don't survive the ground,
like that.
Yeah, I know Mort hasn't survived the ground always.
That's not
But Jesse
true.
James did not survive the ground yesterday. That's really the bottom line.
Even though I'm one of those believers that if it walks like a duck, talks like quacks like a duck, then it is a duck. But bottom line is, they believe they've simplified this to the best of their ability, and they've tweaked it a little bit so that the ball can. Now, I thought somebody brought some Lewis Riddick or Ryan Clark. If a ball can't cause a fumble with a runner, and he hasn't been touched, how can it cause a fumble? Because he wasn't touched in this instance.
It's how many angels can dance on the head of a football, I guess. Juju Smith-Schuster standing in mock replication of what he did to earn the suspension. What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, that's hearkening back to something and earning him a suspension.
Nothing's going to happen.
Not a fine, you don't think?
I would only have. I should have known that Bob Lee and outside the lines was going to put that on
look, there are essentially no rules on celebrations. We've seen some really creative ones, but when you
can't be you can't have an act of violence.
But he's basically celebrating an act of violence and earning him a suspension. Or am I just being too out of it?
The league could decide to review that, using that as a reason to fine him. That's possible. Look, we could all agree. Poor taste. You don't do that. This is something that you were disciplined for, and you come back a week later.
With Ryan Shazier upstairs. You're talking about just all of these issues revolving around the violence in the game. And by the way, Thomas Davis offering a public apology for his hit.
But no doubt.
Will that mitigate what could happen to him on the targeting, do you think?
Listen, because he was fined, what was it, $48,000 a few weeks ago for a similar type of hit, I think he's looking at possible suspension.
With Tom, I think he gets a game too, but with Thomas Davis, you could see him on the bench, and you could see the remorse he had and how bothered he was by the hit that he put on Davante Adams right there. And I don't think that will weigh into the league's decision, because here's the hit coming up right there on Davante Adams. Yeah. He lunges at a defenseless player, hits him right in the head. That's just the type of hit the NFL wants to get out of the game, and Thomas Davis knew it.
All right, guys, we will see you tonight. Monday Countdown 6 Eastern. In the meantime, we're going to pool our pennies and our quarters and a couple of fives in your wallet.
Get up to that one.
Get a group together. You, three of us and Diddy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have questions and many questions about the star AD at Louisville.
Every time it's too nice out to be a work day, a Corona gets its line. And every time you decide